Hello, my name is Arian Deutsch. I'm a certified dental technician and I've been in the field of dental technology for over 20 years now. I wanted to talk to you today about a presentation that I gave at the Midwinter Meeting 2015 in Chicago about a week and a half ago. And I just wanted to share with you what I presented to that audience there in Chicago regarding a new implant solution. I've been involved with implant prosthetics for the duration of my career in dental technology, and I can tell you this is something pretty exciting. I feel that I'm introducing. It's something I've been working on for a number of years, and when it comes to the field of fixed hybrid prosthetics, which is gaining in popularity right now in the United States, I think this offers yet another solution that actually kind of gives us quite a few more options in a lot of cases than the current existing protocols for fixed hybrid prosthetics with acrylic. So I just wanted to share with you that presentation. I hope you find it informative. And again, this is the presentation that I gave in Chicago just about a week and a half ago for Ivoclar Vivadent's Removable Symposium. The title of it was Restoring Patient Confidence with a New Removable Solution. It's really a new removable implant solution, we could say. And so I get asked two questions in removables. Why removables? Because so many patients want fixed. There's been a lot of fixed marketed to patients these days, fixed acrylic hybrid prostheses using CAD/CAM technology. And the other question that we get a lot is what's new in removables? Some people will say that, well, there's nothing new in removables. Nothing's changed for 50, possibly 100 years. And that's simply not true, and I'll show you why we say that. Before I get too far, I want to talk about shortcuts. Really, there are no shortcuts when it comes to high-end prosthetics, when it comes to implant prosthetics. As implants become the standard in dentistry, we want to be careful not to take shortcuts. It is unfortunately a lot of the trend that I see going on with implant prosthetics in particular. Some people feel that because implants are in place, we don't really need fully extended impressions, we don't need very accurate impressions, but that's simply not true. As technicians, we do an in-depth model analysis, which I'm showing here, to find original tooth positions, to find stability zones, to find neutral zone. We may have heard of neutral zone dentures. All these principles still come into play regardless of whether implants are present or not. So we really want to pay attention to that, and I wanted to make a special mention of that. I feel the quality of our clinical records really is going to be a foundation for what we achieve long term and what we achieve for our final outcome. So we're not really going to achieve superlative results if we don't start with a good foundation. So again, I just like to stress that, just because implants are doing some wonderful things for us, we still need to get good clinical records. We need good impressions, fully extended impressions that show landmarks, because those landmarks are what we use in the lab. You really couldn't get by giving a builder half of a blueprint. So same thing in dental technology. We as technicians can't get by with half a blueprint. So now that that's cleared up and out of the way, I just wanted to make a mention of that. I wanted to talk more about this fixed acrylic phenomenon. If you're familiar with Clear Choice or you're familiar with All-on-4, then you're familiar with fixing acrylic in the mouth. And acrylic is porous. We've done a number of these cases in the Phoenix area. I think that's mainly due to the fact that we had Clear Choice here very early on. So for quite a few years now, we've been doing fixed prostheses. We've been doing in-office conversions, out-of-state, in-state here quite a bit as well. And so we can achieve some very nice results when we plan these cases properly. We also have a good partnership with the Milling Center in Quebec City, and so we can achieve a very nice surface coating on these cases that bonds very well with acrylic. It's actually a silica coating, as you can see in some of the photos here. And this is one particular case that we did with a prosthodontist in upstate New York. The result was very nice. Patient was very happy, and you'll see just a few patient photos in a minute. But again, we were able to restore, I think for this edentulous maxillary case, we were able to restore this patient's confidence in their smile. But again, as we did mention, with new solutions, or I should say with some of these solutions, we do have pros and cons for pretty much every solution that's out there. And if you've done a number of these hybrid screw-retained cases, you know what the issues are as far as cleansability, bone reduction, high smile line patients. So I'm introducing a new solution. We talk a little bit about some of the pros before we actually get into what the solution is. I just wanted to show you this particular case we did out here in Scottsdale. You can see this was initially a screw retain case, but the implant angles are very difficult. The patient has a very high smile line, so we had a number of issues here that we had to really get around. Bad implant angulation, high smile line, very little bone reduction was done. So here's some planning for a telescopic case that we did for this case. We took this patient out of screw retained into telescopic. And very interesting. So here are our primary zirconia milled abutments in the mouth. These are hybrid abutments, so they do have a titanium interface, and they are CAD/CAM milled, but then they are hand milled by me in the laboratory. And we'll show a little bit of that later as well. I wanted to show you the type of space issue that we were up against in the interior implants in this case. This is a matrix of the tissue and dentition, and you can see how close we are. But we were able to get around it. This is a completely customized solution, so we were able to get around very difficult space limitations. So another great reason to go with this type of a solution. Again, just showing the contour of these. This is all handmade for the final milling. In the next couple slides, we're going to see the finished prosthesis. There's secondary telescopes made out of galvano gold inside, and we'll get into exactly how we did this case. I'm going to present a case from start to finish. Here you can see on the left the primary abutments, how they were designed to fit within the volume of the approved tooth positions. And again, you see the accesses. The accesses don't matter because this is a removable prosthesis, and that's just for the primary abutments access. So again, for this particular case, the primary abutments in situ, this was the day of delivery. We marked them on the buccal so we can reorient them in the mouth. The prosthesis goes in, and of course this prosthesis has no palate. We need very, very little acrylic in this. We want to just replace what was lost because it is implant borne and tissue supported as well. It's not a resilient attachment. And here's the patient, day of delivery, big smile. We used a couple different shades of acrylic, and then you see the intaglio surface of the prosthesis with the gold copings only showing. So again, I'm calling it a new solution. Really in Europe it's an old solution. It's essentially a 0-degree telescopic case. I'm calling it the Deutsch Removable Bridge Zirconia because we've taken it from the metal to zirconia. On the right you see metal. Was very frictive. We had some issues with wear, but now we've gone to zirconia for the primary, so they last quite a long time. I want to talk a little bit about foundation on this particular case that we did. Again, when we talk about impressions, fully extended impressions is what we like to see, regardless of whether it's a denture case or an implant case as it is in this case. 4 Straumann tissue level implants were placed. This patient initially presented with locator attachments, which was not very stable for her. She desired an open palate. Again, as far as the foundation side of this goes, I really like to see an arch tracer used for bite registration, for centric relation and vertical dimension. Again, the accuracy of the impression is important. So I like to get a really accurate impression, especially with these types of cases, because we are doing an abutment that is going to have a margin in a lot of cases. So I really like that margin to flow very well. So again, back to the foundation. Here you're going to see an aesthetic control base in concert with an arch tracing. The arch tracer device is there. We're going to see it in the mouth shortly. I wanted to point out that on Ivoclar Vivadent's website, it's a great place to go if you're looking for an arch tracer like the one that we show here. You just click on the Candelor tab on Ivoclar Vivadent's shop side of their website. You go down to articulation and click on that, and then you're going to get another category. You want to go down and click on registration device. Under registration device, you'll find our kit. It's the CRS Set 10 complete. Comes with a thumb drive which has videos on how to take an arch tracing. Don't be intimidated by taking an arch tracing, please. It's going to up your game 100-fold. It'll really give you an accurate bite registration, centric relation, and vertical dimension. So here the actual arch tracing is performed. We go through the motions, marking it on the strike plate as you'll see. That little circular thing gets locked in there, and when the patient repeatedly bites in there with that pin tracer, what we then do is we record that in the mouth. We lute everything together once we're confident that that's the patient's centric, and then that goes onto the articulator. In this case we used an Ivoclar Stratos 200. So again, here we are on the articulator. If we've got photos as a laboratory technician, we've got these good records from our clinician, we start to set our teeth. So great great place to start. The other thing I wanted to mention about Ivoclar is they've got a great tool for selecting teeth. If you've got an allometer gauge, which basically measures the outside of the nose, the ala, what you can do is you can just slide this rule up to whatever measurement you have. And this is available not only on their website, but it's also available for download. There's an app for it for both iPhone and for Android. So you can download those very easily. And you can use this, slide right over. In this case, we came between 33 and 34 millimeters for an allometer reading. That lines us up with mold 554. When we click on the mold view with measurements, we can see all the measurements laid out right there for us. The central's 8.02 millimeter wide, 12 millimeter tall to the crown. So we get all that information right here. So again, we chose mold 554, a little bit of a feminine mold for this patient, and I think it worked out really well. And we'll show you actually some of the before and afters on this. But at this point, we do our tooth setup and wax. When it comes to gingiva, I like to use a variety of colors of wax to make the gingiva look real. And depending on the particular patient, we will modify those colors. In this case, I bumped up the shade 55, which is the more vascular, darker shade of wax, to more mimic the patient's tissues. So I used essentially these three waxes. In this case, I just used two. And here I'm just bumping up the shade 55 with a little modifier, and that really brings up that red to make it a little deeper red than what it comes like stock. The way that I do this, I'd like to show you as well, just kind of my routine using two colors, but the point is we're really adding life to the prosthesis. We're adding value for the patient. When they see this in the mouth, they see that you're using different colored waxes and that they don't just have this monochromatic smile or this monochromatic color for tissue. Makes a big difference for them. The way that I'm achieving this is I start with the vascular, the deeper red, the more vascular color. I start from the vestibule, working my way up toward the crowns of the teeth. We then add a blanching shade, the lighter shade, around the necks of the teeth. We blend these together with a hot spatula, and we want to get rid of that transition. We want to make it a very natural, gradual transition from the darker red to the lighter blanch shades. We use an alcohol torch to blend that a little bit as well. We perform our cutback, and then from there, really, it's just a matter of manipulating the wax a little bit, adding a little stippling to get a really natural effect for the patient. And that's really what we can achieve these days in adding value. So that's something else that's new and removable. Our first wax scout, the patient's first wax try-in, we've already made quite a difference, as you'll be able to see in just a moment. On the left patient, this is how they presented. Already we've got a much more natural smile, a more feminine mold of tooth. On the top, you can see how the patient initially presented. She does have a lip pull on the right. On the bottom, you can see where we ended up at the first wax try-in. Once we find approved tooth positions, meaning that our registration is good, meaning that our phonetics are good and that our aesthetics are good, we can then do a double scan of this wax up on the implant level model and design our primary zirconia abutments. And that's what you see here in the transparency. Again, we design these, we customize these to whatever path we choose, the volume that we choose, we put the margins where we want them, all trying to go within the volume of the approved tooth positions. We don't want any irregularities or bumps of acrylic that are not necessary. We want to only replace what was lost so that the patient is comfortable and that we've replaced part of their body. Again, analog excellence equals digital excellence. If our impressions are good, our foundation is good, the end result will be good. This is our primary rough milled zirconia, and those are the abutments there. Verification we do a little differently than when we do a verification for a bar. You may be used to doing a verification jig. In this case, I'm using pattern resin copings. Those pattern resin copings go right over the top, and they're used with this verification key, I like to call it, in yellow. The verification key is made out of Vivadent material, also made from Ivoclar Vivadent. And again, I'll show you exactly how we're verifying, because we have to verify a little differently when we're doing telescopic. So again, our primary abutments are in place. Next to what you'll see is the pattern resin copings in place, and this is exactly how it goes in the mouth. We're going to do this same series. We will test that verification jig in yellow to make sure it's passive, that it's not binding anywhere, and then essentially we're going to lute the yellow to the red. So we're luting the yellow verification key to the pattern resin copings. So in the mouth, patient again presented with locator abutments. Those come out. The primary zirconia abutments go in, and these again are rough milled. They go in first. I mark the buckle, and then I go from model to mouth so that we can keep the order of these in place and the rotational information. Next, the pattern resin copings go right in over place. You'll see the mark on those as well on the buckle so that we can orient them well. And then from there, that verification key in yellow goes in place. And we want to just make sure that it's loose fitting, that it's not binding anywhere. And we're now going to lute that verification key to the secondary pattern resin abutments, or excuse me, pattern resin copings. There we use pattern resin to lute it all together. We let that set for 15 minutes, we remove it, and that gets sent to the lab. We do not reattempt seating that on the model. Once I rectify the model in the laboratory, I do my final milling, which I'll show you here. There's a little video up in the left-hand corner, and that is basically how I'm doing it with a water turbine on a hand mill. I use a series of 5 0-degree diamond burrs, all the way up to 4 micron, and then we go from there and we use a dry polish, a series of 3 dry polish burrs, and they're milling burrs, and you can see here the finished result. We get a very highly polished surface, and this is why this prosthesis stays retentive for so long. There's no more metal-to-metal friction on these. It's a highly polished surface against gold, and we're now 11 plus years on some of these cases where there's no loss in retention. So really great for longevity. Again, just showing some final milled and polished zirconia abutments that we've done, and as you can see, a very highly polished surface wears the gold very minimally, even long term. Here's the particular case that we're working on, again at 0 degree, and we'll move right along with this case. At this point, all the finally milled and polished abutments go in the mouth, and you can see them there. Everything looks really good. And now we're going to do our secondary telescopes. They're made out of galvano gold, which is electroformed gold. Up on the right corner, you'll see the electroforming process that I do in my laboratory. You'll see the gold getting more rich in color as the gold gets attracted to the surface of the primary. The secondary telescope fits the primary between 4 and 5 micron, which is great in terms of dentistry. 4 to 5 microns is an extremely accurate fit. These work out really well, and I electroform these in the laboratory. Here you can see the finished galvano gold copings. They get rinsed with acid to get rid of any remaining silver lacquer. We use a conductive silver lacquer in the process. So again, there you have the secondary telescopes being formed, a very uniform layer of gold that we use as a coping. And this all gets held together with a tertiary structure as well. In the next video, I wanted to give you an idea of the precision fit of these. I'm just dropping a galvano coping onto a primary, and I'll show you in that next video. So here the galvano copings are finished on the model. And in this video, watch as I just drop one of these galvano gold copings onto the top of the zirconia primary. I just drop it on there, and it literally just slides very slowly down as the air is expressed out from between the two. So again, it's an extremely precise fit. Again, this is not a new concept. This is old European technology using new materials, the zirconia in particular. So here we have a case. The electroformed gold copings are in place, and now we're going to talk a little bit about the tertiary structure, which is typically a chromium cobalt. It's a non-precious metal, and we typically are using either casting method, or now we've also used SLM, selective laser melting technology through Bago, and we'll show you that in just a moment. So again, just a few shots of the gold. This is another partial case that we actually did. And then our tertiary structure comes into play. The tertiary structure gets cemented to the secondary gold galvano copings, as you'll see in an upcoming slide here. Here I'm actually just showing, I've got a little ahead of myself, this is actually just a matrix of the final tooth positions. Again, everything is designed within the volume of the approved tooth positions so that we don't have any unnecessary acrylic, no bizarre bulky acrylic areas for the patient. It flows right in with their oral environment. So that's really our goal, is to just replace what was lost. In the next slide, we'll see tertiary structure. As I mentioned, it's a non-precious structure that gets wrapped in acrylic, and it gets cemented to the secondary galvano copings. It gets opaqued, as you can see on the top right-hand corner, and then everything gets assembled, and we go for our final try-in and wax. And so that worked out really well. We can see again, patient initially presented here on the left. If we look at the bipupillary line, we can see that there's quite a cant to the existing prosthesis. The mandibular denture was pretty bad off. And then we can see on the right what we were able to achieve using the Deutsch Removable Bridge, and again using landmarks to find tooth positions. So again, patient was very happy, and I just wanted to present this case to you. I thought it may interest everyone, and it's pretty unique technology. For any questions, you can reach me at arian@deutschlab.com. You can also visit the website www.deutschlab.com. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and thank you for your time.